1. Astronomy professionals and serious eclipse specialists. Approximate interested group 500,000 to 2 million. This group would include professional astronomers, eclipse researchers, observatory staff, advanced amateurs, eclipse chasers, astronomy societies, and the most dedicated space news followers. The number is relatively small, but the intensity of interest would be extremely high because the claim directly concerns eclipse recurrence, structure, and interpretation. U.S. surveys already show strong public interest in space exploration, and specialist communities are much more concentrated than the general public. Conclusion: this would be the smallest audience, but the most influential scientifically. 2. Broader science news and space news audience. Approximate interested group 20 million to 80 million. This is the audience that regularly follows major science or space stories through digital news, YouTube explainers, podcasts, and social platforms. Reuters Institute documents the global importance of digital news consumption, and Pew continues to find substantial public attention to science and scientists in the U.S. A verified hidden structure in eclipses would be exactly the kind of story that breaks out of specialist circles into mainstream science news attention. Conclusion: this is the first truly mass audience likely to engage seriously with the story. 3. Educators, students, STEM learners, and science communicators. Approximate interested group 10 million to 40 million. Because the UN group architecture is visual and teaches well through wheels, zones, waves, pairings, and recurrence, it would likely spread through teachers, students, museum planetarium audiences, science YouTubers, and educational communities. YouTube explicitly positions itself as a major education platform, and STEM-related public audiences are large enough that an eclipse order model with strong visuals could spread well beyond research circles. Conclusion: this would be one of the strongest long-tail audiences because the model is unusually teachable. 4. Math, data pattern, systems theory, and AI communities. Approximate interested group 5 million to 20 million. If verified, the architecture would not be interesting only as astronomy. It would also attract people interested in hidden structure, recurrence systems, geometry, and pattern discovery. Because the UN group work combines ordered sequences, grouped cycles, zone structure, and numeric motifs, it fits the kinds of topics that spread in math and pattern communities online, especially on YouTube, Reddit-like forums, Substack-style writing spaces, and social media threads. This estimate is smaller than the science news audience, but highly likely to produce sustained discussion. Broad social platform reach makes this plausible even as a niche. Conclusion: this would be a smaller but very active secondary audience that could keep the discussion alive. 5. Metaphysical, astrology, numerology, and symbolic order audiences. Approximate interested group 20 million to 100 million. If the UN group architecture were verified, the symbolic layer would attract a very large secondary audience. Pew found that 30% of U.S. adults say they consult astrology, tarot, or fortune tellers at least once a year. That does not mean all of them would follow this story, but it shows that symbolic and metaphysical frameworks have a large existing audience. Because the UN group work includes visible number motifs, symmetry, and cosmic order implications, this audience could be extremely responsive online. Conclusion: this could become one of the largest amplification communities on social media, especially after initial scientific coverage. 6. General eclipse curious and viral social media public eclipse. Approximate interested group 100 million to 400 million. This is the audience that may not care deeply about the math or astronomy, but would still click, watch, or share because the story is cosmic, visual, and surprising. With 5.66 billion global monthly social media identities and over 2 billion monthly logged-in YouTube users, even a low single-digit share of total reachable users is already enormous. If the story were validated by respected institutions and paired with strong graphics or short videos, it could plausibly reach this scale of general interest engagement. Conclusion: this is the group that would make the story feel globally viral rather than merely important. 7. Mainstream world news audience. Approximate interested group 50 million to 250 million. This is a little different from social media. World news audiences are broader but usually less engaged. Reuters Institute's digital news report shows how central digital news is across many countries, while Pew shows that news following intensity varies a lot by age and platform. A story like this would likely receive strong science desk coverage first, and only broader world news pickup if the verification were institutionally solid and the claim were framed clearly. That means the mainstream news audience could be very large, but usually shallower than the social media/slash YouTube audience. Conclusion: traditional and digital news media could deliver very large awareness, but usually with less depth than specialist and social audiences. 8. Approximate final number of people interested. Because these groups overlap heavily, they should not be added together. A science YouTube viewer might also be a teacher, a math enthusiast, and a mainstream news reader. My best estimate for unique global people meaningfully interested in the first major wave after independent verification would be: conservative case, 150 million to 300 million. Strong global breakout case, 300 million to 600 million. Extreme viral case with major institutional validation and strong visuals. 600 million to 1 billion plus in headline level awareness, though not all of those people would engage deeply. 9. Final summary. If the UN group full recurrence architecture were proven correct, the most interested groups would likely be astronomy professionals and eclipse specialists, broader science and space news followers, educators, students, and STEM learners, math, systems, and AI pattern communities, metaphysical, astrology, and numerology audiences, the general viral social media public, mainstream world news audiences. My overall judgment is, on social media, the story could become very large very fast. In world news media, it could become a major global science story if the verification came from credible outside institutions. The likely total number of unique people who would become meaningfully interested is probably on the order of 150 million to 600 million, with a real possibility of going higher if the story is both scientifically validated and visually compelling.